hasn't achieved. So I want to talk about this now with our panel, Independent MP for Fowler, Dai Le, and Independent MP for Mackellar, Sophie Scomps. Ladies, thanks so much for your time this morning. Sophie, first to you, how important are these visits in your mind to voters in your electorate, do you think?
Look, I actually do think these visits are really important, and we saw what happened a few years ago when there was a real breakdown of that relationship, and I think producers around the country would be really happy to see that there is a strengthening of the relationship again. When we look at what happened to the export market here in Australia, overnight the barley industry lost nearly $1 billion of trade. So we need to know that we can be talking with our trading partners, and I think building that relationship is really important. And I do think we need that platform also to raise the difficult issues. So it's been an important visit, and I do think it's one that people in my electorate look to very closely.
Dai Le, your electorate as interested? I mean, when we talk about raising the difficult issues, do you think they should be more prominent than perhaps they have been this trip?
Look, I mean, my electorate obviously is very different to Sophie's. Basically, I mean, you know, we have a very multicultural here. We have people, obviously Chinese of Taiwanese descent, and of course Chinese of China descent. So there is that tension. But I think the majority of the community here in Fowler are pretty focused on our local issues, our businesses, the mums and dads going to work, just the real, you know, day-to-day issues of people's kind of making a living, and it's really what's happening at that level. It's really very far removed from them.
Seems like it. Parliament finally gets back next week. It seems like a long hiatus since the election. Sophie, of course, we've got this tax reform agenda now on the agenda. This is not something flagged before the election. What do you think about where this government can and should go when it comes to tax reform? There's all kinds of things on the table, of course. There's GST, there's the unresolved issue of taxes on higher superannuation funds. What will you be arguing for and against?
Look, I found Ken Henry's comments yesterday at the National Press Club really interesting, and this is something as well that the Business Council of Australia is calling for, and that is first and foremost, we need to get our environment laws set. And it seems a strange thing to talk about when we're talking about tax reform, but we know that productivity in this country has stagnated for over a decade, and one of the biggest things we can do is to get our very weak environment laws reformed and working for both business and to protect our environment. And the reason I'm saying that is, whether we like it or not, we are in the midst of a global industrial revolution. And if we want to be at the forefront of that, we need to be delivering a whole lot of infrastructure. So critical mineral mining and processing, we need more renewable energy with the wind farms and the solar farms, and we need the roads and the transmission, all of that infrastructure. And if we're loading that on top of our broken environment laws, which already delay approvals sometimes for years, we know that productivity will just continue to stagnate. So I agree with Ken Henry. The number one thing is to get those environment laws right so we have certainty for business and we can raise productivity by getting those approvals moving.
So what exactly, like Narrabri, to get that up and going to solve some of the energy issues?
I'm talking more generally about our environment laws. They were last reformed over 25 years ago. They are not.
Yeah, I know, but what's the balance there? You know, Ken Henry's made the argument that it doesn't serve the environment and doesn't serve productivity in terms of getting some of these projects up. Narrabri has got to be one of the best examples of that because it's been tied up in this red and green tape for the better part of 16 years. So what are you saying? It's tipped to these EBPC, the EBPC Act and the environment laws are tipped too far in the favour of the environment?
No, what I'm saying is business needs certainty. Everyone needs certainty. So we do need laws that protect our environment. Yeah. But business, we always hear, needs certainty. And quite often businesses will invest for 10 years looking, you know, researching particular projects, areas, environmental impact statements, only to find out, 5, 7, 10 years down the track that their project is not going to go ahead. And that type of delay is what's holding up productivity in this country. And so what business is calling for, what the Business Council of Australia is calling for, is far greater certainty. And part of that is to have an environment protection agency that is trusted by both sides and that is a strong arbiter for these cases, so that they don't just drag on for years and completely undermine productivity in this country.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dai Le, but where is the balance here? Because we see not only these environmental laws holding up these massive energy projects, but you're talking about being a handbrake on housing as well.
Look, I mean, I agree with we need to get our country to be more productive. And I think productivity means, ensuring that our workforce is skilled up and we have workforce shortages. We have to ensure that there is certainty for businesses to be able to run their business with the cost of living has gone up so much from energy, from the supply chain. I went to a chocolate factory in my local area, for instance, and energy prices have gone up double. The cost of one of their ingredients has gone up triple. So the certainty is around that whole running of the business. Energy obviously is critical and is very central to many businesses running, especially here in Southwest and Western Sydney. These are small family-run businesses, the small manufacturing, and the workforce. We've got a workforce that's really, we need to skill them up, especially with technology, with AI. How do you skill some of those manufacturing? How do we ensure that our manufacturing are able to be scaled up and are able to, export their goods to the world, and we're not just an assembly line, businesses here that we term it manufacturing. But I think the crux of the matter is, how do we ensure that energy, which everybody's talking about, how does that impact our daily lives, from our homes to our small businesses to our big businesses? And that's costing a lot. So that is something that the governments really have to find a way. And when we're talking about tax, I think our tax reform has to look at increasing the income tax threshold, which is the figure is 18,200. That is a 2012 figure. We need to bring it up to almost double that. And I would also, to deal with the increasing cost of living, I would call for the reintroduction of the low middle income tax offset, which the Labor government took that off when they won government, because that will give people reprieve. If they can't buy their batteries, which most households I can buy, and I'm sure your audience probably can afford to buy batteries and solar, but families living in flats here or single income household families in Western Southwest Sydney cannot afford the renewable path that many of us who are privileged that can afford. So how do we provide them with a means so that they can actually deal with the increased cost in energy? So those for me are quite important for this term as I represent my community.
Well, I'm sure you both can't wait to get back to Canberra. I will see you there next week. Thanks so much, Sophie Dai.
Bye.